The DNA analysis is being done by some of the world's best, but even the world's best need to be cross-checked, which is why I'm doing the 3 different facilities. So I actually ran 4 samples. I ran a sample of my own blood. It was a very small amount, just 100 microliters. I ran 2 blanks, things that just had water in them, because that would be essentially a contamination control. And then, of course, the sample itself. And really, the all-important first result was whether or not there was, in fact, any DNA which was isolated. And the actual shock for me was when I got the amount of DNA out of this sample. It was way above what I had originally expected. What you have on the left here is a so-called DNA ladder. This is a size standard. This one on the end is, in fact, my DNA, and it has an expected size distribution as well as some banding. And validating the original measurement is this analysis that basically shows that we have a nice distribution for the sample's DNA.
When we physicists look for alien civilizations, we don't look for little green men. We look for energy consumption. We look for type 1, type 2, and type 3 civilizations. What are we? We are type 0. We get our energy from dead plants, oil and coal. Around the year 2100, we will become a type 1 civilization. And we see the beginnings of that now. What is the internet? The internet is a type 1 telephone system.
Imagine, if you will, sitting down to your morning coffee, turning on your home computer to read the day's newspaper. Well, it's not as far-fetched as it may seem.
Information has largely been controlled in a top-down way. What we're seeing now is the dissemination of discoveries coming up from the grassroots and not from a top-down centralized authority which has the ability to say, this isn't making it because we don't believe it's true, this is making it because it fits the mainstream.
When we want to form a new team in a new country, then all we have to do is contact someone there using the internet, and suddenly they're a member of the node.
From this online collective seems to come a real communion. People from all over gather in groups to investigate UFOs, with safety in numbers against ridicule and disinformation.
What we found in the past is we had a lot of anecdotal stories, but we didn't have a whole lot of data. With the advent of computers, personal computers, and the internet, we've been able to collect the data and analyze it through some 200 plus data points to allow us to be able to compare cases and to see exactly what's happening and what the trends are.
Nick Pope is our guest. He made this information public. He's also the former head of the Ministry of Defense's UFO project. So if anybody knows, we think it's you, Nick.
The Ministry of Defense is in the process of declassifying and releasing its entire archive of UFO files going back decades.
It's interesting and worth pointing out that while the British government is releasing their files and their documents, President Obama, who promised to do the same during the campaign, he still has not.
15 years.
15 years this spring.
Oh my God. But I figured that, you know, after the disclosure project, we'd get this information out and we could go on with life.
How do we keep battering the ram at this door? Where do we find the strength to keep going forward? When you think that you're the only person that has the knowledge, you become marginalized. Steve was instrumental in bringing together a large group who had been involved in this subject and who for the first time realized that they were not alone in trying to come forward on the subject.
Governments, we've discovered, have not gone far enough, so we've decided that as people using the CE5 protocols, form our own movement and do what governments have not been doing. We think of this as the People's Disclosure Movement.
And so we feel it's important to create an effort that's a global effort, which this has become.
My name is Mark Benz, and this is Rex, and we're in Bodega, California, and we're doing CE5.
My name is Jeff Bird, and here in Winchester, Virginia, USA, we are doing CE5.
My name is Peggy Brewster, and here in Middleton, United States of America, we are doing CE5.
We have 1,150 teams of CE5 ambassadors, which are spread over 52 countries.
My name is Andre, and here in Sweden, we are doing CE5.
Und wir machen zusammen CE5 in Deutschland.
Here in Burlington, Ontario.
Brisbane, Australia.
From Chester, Virginia.
And Hamilton, Ohio.
We are doing the CE5.
Konnichiwa. Moje ime Daniel.
Daniel tu na Slovensku.
Es Leo Ortiz.
And here in Vancouver, British Columbia.
Faisons du CE5.
CE5.
The CE5 contacts
CE5.
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 We're doing CE5.
And the reason I think that's so important is that it not only builds the knowledge base, but it also further potentiates this concept of pioneering a new pattern of peaceful contact. And that is something that no other group, large group on Earth is doing. Certainly isn't being done by the State Department and the Senate Foreign Relations Committee.
It seems to be it only takes one person to make contact. But hundreds of voices worldwide is a call that can't be missed. And likewise with innovation, the more heads in the game, the more likely we are to find a solution.
There's many technologies that people have talked about, many ways to the mountaintop.
We have so many modes of converting quantum vacuum energy or zero-point energy.
Some people think they know how to do it. Okay, fine. But if you do it theoretically, that's one thing. But then you got to do it experimentally, and that's the hard part.
Those opposed to new energy technologies can tie the hands of hundreds of inventors. But how will they ever fare against tens of thousands?
The output milliamperage is more than the input milliamperage. It's a clear indicator of overunity.
I'm gonna ask you to look away. I love my hands, but it hurts to pray. The life I have isn't what I'd seen. The sky's not blue and the field's not green. Wait for me. Wait for me. Wait for me. Wait
When you oscillate or vibrate magnetic fields, there's an effect in the gravity field. And how to do that linkage is what you're trying to get at, as I understand
Maxwell's equations are in that term right there. And what happens is if you're going to have a gravitational effect, it's going to happen over there.
Josh, I think I can help too. This channel here represents revolutions per minute. These are representing weight that we're measuring on the load cells. Full steam ahead.
When we look at our data, we lost 7% of weight. If we move this thing and it loses weight, I must be generating gravity waves.
Though the device maintains its shape and size in terms of dimension, it is losing mass. That's a possibility. If it is losing mass, then certainly it would also be affecting time in a very localized manner.
By looking at new technology, you could break through new commercial aspects to improve our society.
We should be looking for a disruptive breakthrough in this technology within the next 10 years. We're on the brink of developing any number of potential propulsion systems which would take us out of the solar system. I think we're going to beat NASA to the mark.
So I graduated from the UCLA School of Engineering in 1976. I got a flyer from the School of Engineering inviting me to a lecture by Ben Rich.
Ben Rich was the director of Lockheed's Skunk Works for 16 years. He oversaw a number of USAPs that were secretly managed at the Skunk Works, including, most notably, the development of the F-117 stealth fighter.
Ben shared a slide set of about 40 slides of different things, starting with the U-2 spy plane, going all the way up to the stealth fighter at that time, mentioning that he couldn't talk about the other secret stuff. But when he ended his talk, he had a slide of a black disc zipping off into outer space. And he ended this talk with these words: "We now have the technology to take ET home."
So you have to have vision, and you have to have the guts and the courage to go out past the steps and do something of any value, and we have to go past our grasp.
And we asked him questions about it. What did you mean when you said we have the technology to take ET home? Ben shared 3 major things that I think are worthy of research by researchers worldwide at this point in time. The first was we've somehow figured out how to do interstellar travel already. It's known. The second point he made was that there was an error in the equations. My suspicion is it's probably Maxwell's equations for electromagnetic theory. The third thing he said was, how does ESP work? And I was really kind of startled because I didn't know what to say. But I blurted out, I don't know, all points in time and space are connected. And he looked me back in the eye and he said, that's how it works.
History has taught us that to simply innovate new technology may not be enough. We have to find a way to get past the suppression.
We've already now had a breakthrough just a couple months ago of the tritium battery. Finally, a company has come up with an actual commercializable unit, but it's very small. It's designed for an IC or some small circuit component. So this is a good sign, because it shows the way to introduce a free energy device is to introduce a small version of it. If you have a revolutionary energy device, it has to be introduced in a way that doesn't look like it's a revolution.
Science is always changing. I mean, even back in the 1960s, they thought that biofeedback, for example, was impossible. But now, of course, we know that that itself is an absurd statement. We have even toys on the market that allow people to, play with biofeedback.
These sciences have been around for decades. They have been ruthlessly kept secret because of the kleptocracy of what I call the petrofascists, the people who are hell-bent on maintaining the power of a centralized petrodollar oil, gas, coal system. So that does create scarcity because that is a zero-sum game. But when you take us off that system onto this new system, it's an entirely new macroeconomic order, and scarcity becomes non-existent.
After years of disappointments, Dr. Greer and his team are now attempting to build an energy research lab in Virginia, where scientists and inventors with working prototypes will have a safe haven to build.